As a judge, Sarah Miller was known to all for her ironclad impartiality and unwavering integrity. Someone once tried to bribe her with millions, and by the next day, they were arrested for bribery. On the eve of another trial, she was kidnapped and held at gunpoint. Sarah's response was that she would rather die than compromise the dignity of the law. Yet this was the same righteous woman who, in a murder case, framed her own innocent father-in-law for rape and murder, sentencing him to death, all to protect the mother of her first love. I stood in front of Sarah, losing control, my voice shaking as I demanded, "Why? You were there that day. You know my father is innocent." Sarah pursed her lips and said softly, "I'm sorry, but Ethan's health. He can't handle a shock like this. I misunderstood him back then. I owe him. And I can handle this kind of shock." A sharp pain lanced through my chest as I choked out the words. "You owe him. So you use my father's life to pay your debt? I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you," Sarah said, stepping forward to embrace me. I shoved her away, roaring, "Make it up to me? That was my father, who loved me and cherished me. A living, breathing person. Can you ever make up for that?" Sarah fell silent, her expression becoming the same one she used on the distraught families of defendants she saw in court. I yelled in fury, "Sarah, what happened to the meticulous justice you were so proud of? What happened to the dignity of the law you swore to protect with your life? For Ethan, you're willing to throw away your conscience as a judge." After a moment of silence, Sarah said, "For Ethan, my principles can be broken." Her words were a poison blade, plunging straight into my heart, the pain stealing my breath. I staggered back, my hand clutching my chest as tears streamed down my face. So, she had never forgotten Ethan, even after 5 years apart. He was so important to her that she would shatter the very principles she had sworn her life to uphold. And what about me? Had she ever truly loved me? But I didn't even have time to demand the truth from her. I had hoped that confronting Sarah would change something, but it was clear she would never change her mind. I couldn't waste another second. I had to find evidence before they executed my father. I will not let my father die for nothing. With those words, I turned and walked away. In my quest for evidence, I was beaten and threatened multiple times. It was my younger brother Chris, just a freshman in college, who risked everything to protect me. Because of this, he was framed for a crime he didn't commit and thrown in jail. But I knew I couldn't give up. In the end, I sold my company and everything I owned for a fraction of its worth, betting my life on one last chance, and I finally got the proof. The evidence was irrefutable. My father was innocent. The real killer was Ethan Donovan's mother. There was only one day left until my father's execution. Suddenly, my phone rang. "This is to inform the family that your father's execution has been moved up. It will take place in 1 hour." My mind went blank, a deafening roar filling my ears. "Isn't it scheduled for tomorrow?" I asked in a panic. "Why has it been moved up?" But the line went dead. I tried calling back, but no one answered. My heart pounding with dread, I raced to the Chicago Police Department. I blew through countless red lights and finally screeched to a halt in front of the station with 20 minutes to spare. There was still time to submit the evidence. I slammed the car door and sprinted towards the entrance. But just as I was about to burst through the doors, Sarah appeared out of nowhere, grabbing me from behind and clamping a hand over my mouth. Sarah whispered in my ear, "I won't give you the chance to hurt Ethan." I fought with everything I had, but she had people holding me in an iron grip. I couldn't break free. "Stop struggling," she said, her voice sharp with impatience. "Do you really want to see Ethan lose his mother and watch him suffer?" She forced me into a family housing unit behind the station. "You'll stay in here until after your father's execution. Don't even think about leaving." I lunged for the door, screaming, "Sarah, you're a monster. You're treating a man's life like it's nothing. Let me out. I have to save my father." But no matter how I yelled or beat against the door, she had guards posted outside, giving me no chance to escape. The seconds ticked by, each one a countdown to the end of my father's life. My heart felt like it was being roasted over an open flame. With a thud, I collapsed to my knees. I grabbed her sleeve, tears streaming down my face as I begged, "Sarah, please, I'm begging you, let me out. My father is innocent. Are you just going to watch him die for nothing? Have you forgotten you said you became a judge so that no good person would ever be wrongfully convicted?" For a fleeting moment, her expression softened, but no matter how I pleaded, she refused to let me leave with the evidence. Time was up. I wiped the tears from my eyes and glanced at the window. I scrambled to my feet, ran to the window, and without a second's hesitation, I jumped. A searing pain shot through my chest. From 3 stories up, I was sure I'd broken my ribs. But there was no time to hesitate. The pain was so intense, I couldn't even stand up. But I had to get to the station, even if I had to crawl. Daniel, Sarah ran out, her face a mask of panic. She rushed over and had her men lift me into a car. I'm taking you to the hospital, Daniel. I'm taking you to the hospital. No, I have to say my dad. I gasped, blood trickling from the corner of my mouth. I tried to push her away, but any movement sent waves of agonizing pain through me. I was completely powerless against her. Sarah slammed the car door shut. As we drove out of the compound, passing the execution yard, I prepared to jump from the moving car. I took a deep breath, my hand on the handle, when suddenly I heard it. A single, deafening gunshot. My body went rigid. The entire world seemed to fall silent. A single thought echoed in my mind. Father is dead. I don't have a father anymore. I let out a blood-curdling scream. Dad. Your father is gone, Sarah said, her voice chillingly calm. You can't bring back the dead, so just give up. Stop trying to drag Ethan's mother down with him. Drag her down, but Ethan's mother was the murderer. She was the one who killed his father's mistress. I dug my fingers into my scalp, my body shaking uncontrollably as I broke down, sobbing with everything I had. My father had doted on me my whole life. He was the best father in the world. I had the evidence, I had the proof, but he still died, sentenced by his own daughter-in-law. In his final moments, how much regret must he have felt? How worried he must have been for me. I clutched my chest as a fresh torrent of blood spilled from my lips. Overwhelmed by grief, my body gave out, and I plunged into an endless darkness. It felt as if I had fallen into a nightmare from which I could never wake. One moment, I was dreaming of the past, of my secret crush on Sarah, watching helplessly as she and Ethan fell in love. The next, I dreamed of the day she was kidnapped, how Ethan had abandoned her to save himself, and how I had been the one to risk my life to save her. Then I dreamed of my father meeting with Ethan's father in a private room to discuss business, when Ethan's mother burst in and, in a fit of rage, killed her husband's mistress. But in the end, all my dreams faded, leaving only the sound of that gunshot. No, I screamed, my eyes flying open. My heart pounded in my chest. I sat up and looked around. I was in a hospital. The memory flooded back. My father was dead, wrongfully executed, and I couldn't stop myself from breaking down into loud, ragged sobs. I don't know how long I cried, but eventually I felt a hand gently stroking my hair. I looked up and saw Sarah, her face etched with a look of concern. It felt so fake. I wrenched my head away. Sarah sighed. I know this is hard to accept, but you need to take care of yourself. I brought you some soup. I ignored everything she said. Finally, with a sigh of resignation, she left the soup on the table and walked out. I immediately called my lawyer. Draw up the divorce papers. After hanging up, I ignored the pain racking my body and forced myself out of bed. I had to submit the evidence. My father, a man who spent his life helping others, would not go down in history as a rapist and a murderer, and I would not let the real killer walk free. As I got off the elevator, I immediately saw Ethan Donovan and his mother. He saw me at the same time. Ethan walked over with his mother, looking me up and down with a smirk. Heard you caused a scene at the police station. What a shame. What good did that do? From now on, you're nothing but a murderer's son. I gritted my teeth. You know damn well who the real killer is. Ethan's lips curled into a grin. And what if I do? Your father's the one who's dead. From now on, whenever people mention him, they'll call him a rapist and a murderer. They'll all say he got what he deserved. And you know, I agree. He deserved to die for having a son like you. Hearing him insult my father, I snapped. I slapped him hard across the face. Your mother is the murderer. She's the one who should be dead. What do you think you're doing? Sarah came running over from a short distance away, a bag of medicine in her hand. It hit me then. She was here with the Donovans, visiting me, bringing me soup. It was all just an afterthought while she was here for them. Before I could say a word, Ethan's eyes welled up. Sarah, I was just trying to comfort him. I was worried he was taking it too hard, but I didn't expect. His mother then burst into loud, theatrical sobs. It's all my fault. Please don't hit my son. Hit me instead. I'm begging you. Take it all out on me. As she spoke, she grabbed my hand and started slapping her own face with it. Let go of me, I yelled, trying to pull away. I hadn't used any force at all, but the next second, Mrs. Donovan shrieked and collapsed onto the floor. "Mom!" Ethan cried, rushing to her side. He knelt on the floor, and the two of them clung to each other, a sobbing, pitiful mess. Seeing this, Sarah's chest heaved with rage. "Daniel," she spat, "are you satisfied now?" I rubbed my wrist, already turning purple where she had gripped it. She fell on her own. It had nothing to do with me. Sarah let out a cold laugh. "I saw what happened with my own eyes. Are you going to deny it? Apologize to them. Now." I stared right at her. Me apologize to them? Who exactly should be apologizing to whom here? "Let's deal with one thing at a time," Sarah said. "I know I owe you for what happened to your father, but that doesn't give you the right to bully them. Ethan was trying to comfort you, and you not only slapped him, but you also pushed over an elder. Don't you think you owe them an apology?" I didn't back down an inch. "They set this whole thing up to frame me," I said firmly. "I'm not apologizing for anything. Still making excuses. As it happens, there are a few executions today that require judicial oversight. I think you could use some time to reflect." Without another word, she grabbed me roughly, ignoring my injuries, and dragged me out. With my broken ribs, the slightest struggle sent daggers of pain through my body. I couldn't get away. Soon, I found myself at the execution yard, and the memory of my father's death washed over me. A deep chill ran through my body, and my heart felt like it had been plunged into a frozen abyss. Sarah knew perfectly well how devastated I was by my father's death, how much pain I was in. Even in my sleep, I was jolted awake by the sound of gunfire. That sound had become my living nightmare. She paid lip service to owing me, but she was punishing me like this just to appease Ethan. With every inmate they brought out, my vision blurred, and I saw my father's face. Each time a gun fired, my body convulsed, forcing me to relive the agony of my father's death. I finally collapsed, kneeling on the ground, my hands gripping the chain-link fence so hard my fingernails broke, tearing the flesh beneath. The pain in my heart was like 1,000 cuts, slow and deep. I gasped for air, drenched in a cold sweat, trapped in a waking nightmare. At last, the day's executions were finished. Sarah stood over me, looking down as if from a great height. "Daniel, don't be so impulsive and cause trouble for Ethan again." It took every ounce of strength I had just to pull myself up from the ground. My face was a mess of tears and dried blood. I gave Sarah one final look, then slowly turned and on numb legs, walked away one step at a time. I was filled with so much regret. I regretted trusting Sarah, but even more, I regretted ever loving her. Years ago, after Sarah was kidnapped and tortured, she woke up in the hospital to a breakup message from Ethan, who had already fled to Europe, terrified of being implicated. I was the one who risked my life to save her and then cared for her tirelessly. After she was discharged, Sarah proposed to me, swearing she would forget Ethan, that she would love me and be with me forever. Now, with the Donovan family business in trouble, Ethan had returned, claiming he only left Sarah because he had a terminal illness. He claimed he was afraid she would be heartbroken after he died, so he pretended to be a coward and broke up with her. Sarah told him right then and there that she was with me now and that there was no going back. And for the 5 years of our marriage, Sarah had been wonderful to me, so I believed her. But then, she told me she felt she owed Ethan and asked if my family's company could partner with the Donovans to help them through their financial crisis. I went home and begged my father, and that's the only reason he agreed to the deal. If Sarah hadn't lied to me, if I hadn't begged my father to work with the Donovans, he never would have been involved. He would still be alive. I trusted the wrong person, loved the wrong person, and it got my father killed. I walked out of that place and onto the street like a madman, tears streaming down my face as I walked. I kept pounding on my chest with my fist. The pain, it was too much, so much that I wanted to rip my own heart out. All it took was one lie about being sick for Sarah to feel indebted, to trick her husband into helping his family, to break her own principles to cover up a murder for his mother. But when I lost my father, she said she owed me, yet did she show a single shred of mercy when she was destroying me. So this was the difference between love and the lack of it. I was such a fool, the biggest idiot in the world. But even though the pain was killing me, I couldn't forget my purpose. I had to clear my father's name. I took a cab straight to the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. and submitted the video evidence. With no assets left to my name, all I could do was check into a cheap hotel and wait, my stomach churning with anxiety. But the next day didn't bring a verdict. Instead, it brought Sarah, looking like a thunderstorm about to break. She threw my USB drive on the floor. Can't you just let this go? She demanded. I laughed coldly. If it were your family, would you just accept it? Sarah sighed. But your father is already gone. Even if you clear his name, what's the point? It won't bring him back. At least he won't be buried under a cloud of shame, spat on by everyone. I shot back, my eyes turning red. For decades, my father donated to charities, built schools in poor areas. And you let him die with the label of a rapist and a murderer. Sarah, aren't you afraid of karma? Everything that's happened is my fault, Sarah said with a weary tone. But you can't hurt Ethan. After all, he saved my life. I'm just repaying that debt. Saved your life? What are you talking about? I asked, completely baffled. When I was kidnapped, someone rescued me. I was so badly injured, I was barely conscious, I never saw his face. I only just found out it was Ethan. A life for a life, on top of all the years I misunderstood him. What was I supposed to do? She covered her face, her voice filled with anguish. I shot up from the sofa, stunned. He saved you? That's impossible. I was the one who saved you. Sarah looked up, her expression dripping with contempt. You'll say anything to clear your father's name, won't you? If you were the one who saved me, why didn't you ever say anything? I pressed my lips together. I never told her, because when she proposed, I wanted her to fall in love with me for me, not out of some sense of obligation. I never imagined Ethan would exploit my silence like this. But I didn't care anymore. I was going to leave her anyway. I didn't want her gratitude. The way she paraded her righteousness while breaking every rule to repay a favor just made me sick. Believe what you want, I said coldly. But I'm not giving up. I will bring the truth to light. Sarah's voice turned to ice. And you don't care about your brother's life? Prison is a dangerous place. Fights break out. It's not uncommon for someone to get killed by accident. You still here, hold the fight. I've been so focused on saving my father that I hadn't been able to do anything for Chris. I never imagined that after killing my father, Sarah would now threaten me with my brother's life. I started to laugh, a bitter, broken sound that turned into sobs. The lengths Sarah would go to for Ethan were truly astounding. Principles, the dignity of the law. She threw it all away, abusing her power time and time again. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. Fine, I said softly. I'll stop trying to clear my father's name. Just agree to a divorce. To my surprise, she answered without a moment's hesitation. Never. She put her hands on my shoulders. Daniel, I'm never going to divorce you. This was just about repaying my debt to Ethan. We can forget all this happened and go back to how things were. Go back to how things were. How could I forget? How could things ever be the same? It wasn't her family that was dead. It wasn't her who was suffering. That's why she could speak of my pain so casually. I looked up at her and could only laugh at the absurdity. It was as if I was seeing the real Sarah for the first time. I finally understood how cold-hearted and hypocritical she truly was. When Sarah refused a divorce, I didn't argue. Until Chris was released, I pretended to have given up on clearing my father's name. One day, Sarah took me to a party. It was a welcome home party for Ethan, held at the Donovan's mansion in Lake Forest. The moment Sarah and I walked in, people started whispering and pointing at me. Oh my God, is that the murderer's son? Not just a murderer, a rapist. And at his age, it's disgusting. Seriously, I feel dirty just being in the same room as the son of a rapist and a murderer. My hand clenched into a fist. This humiliation was all Sarah's doing. She knew that by framing my father, she was condemning me to a lifetime of shame and scorn. Sarah's face hardened as she strode over to the group. He's his own person, and his father was his own person. Guilt by association is an archaic concept. Watch your mouths, or I'll sue you all for slander. Ethan stepped in to play the peacemaker, smiling. Exactly. You can't judge a person by their parents. Daniel and I go way back. He's a good guy. Watching their little performance just made me sick to my stomach. If it weren't for them, would my father have been wrongfully executed? Would I be standing here, being treated like filth? Ethan put on a friendly face and took my arm. Don't listen to them. It's getting stuffy in here. Let's get some air outside. I wanted to pull away, but I was afraid he'd pull the same stunt his mother did and frame me. In that moment of hesitation, he led me to the edge of the swimming pool. He let go of my arm, and a friendly smile vanished from his face. He crossed his arms, a look of disgust on his face. You know, Daniel, you're pathetic. After everything Sarah did to you, you're still sticking around. You're still sleeping with the woman who had your father killed. Aren't you afraid he's rolling in his grave? I fought to control my anger. I shot back, still not as pathetic as being a homewrecker. Your mother kills the other woman, while you are the other man. Careful you two don't turn on each other someday. You. Ethan's face flushed with anger for a second before he broke into a grin. The one who isn't loved is the one on the outside. If you don't believe me, just watch. You'll see how much Sarah loves me, and just how pathetic you really are. With that, he took out a small pill bottle and hurled it into the pool. His acting was impeccable. His eyes instantly turned red as he cried out in a panicked voice, "My medicine! My medicine!" His shout brought everyone running to the poolside. "What happened?" Sarah demanded. Ethan looked heartbroken. "I think Daniel still blames me. He heard that I'm terminally ill and that I'll die without my medication. So, he got angry and threw it in the pool." "What?" Sarah stared at me, her face a mixture of shock and fury. "Daniel, how could you be so cruel?" I remained calm. I didn't throw his medicine. There are security cameras everywhere. Check the footage and you'll see what happened. But Sarah didn't even consider it. "There's no need. Do you really think Ethan would throw away his own life-saving medication? That he would risk death just to frame you? That's absurd." I was exhausted by Ethan's endless scheming. His tricks were so transparent, so easy to see through. But Sarah was always willing to believe him, never bothering to check the facts. In the end, this was all on her. She enabled him. But until I knew Chris was safe, I couldn't afford to make an enemy of Sarah. I took a deep breath. "So what do you want?" Sarah pointed at the pool. "Everyone has to pay for their actions. Go in and get it." The irony of her words was staggering. And what about her actions? Was she ready to pay the price for what she had done? I looked at the pool. The bottle was tiny. It had vanished the moment it hit the water. It was an early spring night, and the water was bone-chillingly cold. I had just gotten out of the hospital, but I knew Sarah felt no pity for me. I nodded. "Fine, I'll get it." The moment the water touched my skin, the cold took my breath away. I wasn't dressed for this. The icy water seeped into my bones, and soon my face was completely pale. I had no choice but to dive again and again, sinking to the bottom and then surfacing for air, searching for that impossibly small bottle. Sarah's phone rang. As she walked away to take the call, she ordered, "You all watch him. He's not to come out until he finds it." The moment she was gone, Ethan's friend started throwing things at me. I did my best to dodge the objects, but when I tried to climb out, Ethan stomped on my face with his shoe, kicking me back into the water. "Son of a rapist and murderer," he sneered. "Maybe you can wash away your sins in there." "Yeah, I heard the girl his dad raped and killed was younger than he is. The man was an animal, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? Drowning is too good for him. Keep throwing." They pelted me with whatever they could find. I wasn't paying attention, and a sharp, heavy object struck me in the head. I plunged under the surface, inhaling a lungful of water. If I hadn't been a strong swimmer my whole life, I would have drowned right then. I broke the surface, coughing violently, completely unaware of the blood pouring from a gash on my forehead. My face was ashen from the cold, but it was the humiliation that burned, searing my pride like hot oil. And all of it, every single moment, was because of Sarah. I would never forget this. When Sarah returned from her call, she saw the blood on my face and instinctively took a step forward. "What happened?" One of Ethan's friends scoffed. "He's just playing the victim. He's in the water. How could anyone hurt him?" Ethan nodded in agreement. "Sarah, look at us. Our clothes are dry. We haven't even touched him. He came out of the water with that cut on his head. He's probably just trying to make you feel sorry for him." Sarah snorted. "After he threw away life-saving medicine, I'm not falling for it. Daniel, if you don't find that bottle, you could spend the whole night in there." Could anyone survive a whole night in water this cold? I remember back when we first got married, I taught Sarah how to swim. She had held me in the water and promised she'd become a better swimmer than me. So if we were ever in danger, she could be the one to protect me. But now, my pain, my humiliation, my peril, it was all her doing. After another hour in the water, I couldn't feel my limbs anymore. I had no strength left. I dove one last time, and I didn't have the energy to swim back to the surface. I hadn't saved Chris yet. I hadn't cleared my father's name. As my consciousness faded, a single bitter tear of despair escaped my eye. Through the haze, I saw a figure swimming toward me through the water. As my head broke the surface, I managed to get out one last sentence. "Let my brother go." Then I lost consciousness completely. I awoke to a feeling of warmth. I opened my eyes and saw him. "My brother. Chris," I said, a wave of relief washing over me. After losing our father and being thrown in jail, my young brother was finally reunited with his only family. His eyes were red. "Daniel, you must have suffered in there," I said, my voice thick with guilt. "It's all my fault. I didn't protect you. Chris just shook his head. I should have protected you too. I fell silent. I once believed I had married the most just woman in the world. Reality had proven me a fool. I took my brother's hand. You need to leave the country. Immediately. Chris refused. No, I'm staying here to protect you. If you're here, she'll just use you against me again, I said, forcing out the cruel truth. Chris clenched his fists, his jaw tight. Sarah doesn't deserve to be my sister-in-law. All she does is hurt you. I'm going to leave her, I said, trying to reassure him. Leave who? The door swung open, and Sarah walked in. The moment Chris saw her, he shot her a look of pure hatred, as if he wanted to punch her. Chris was just talking about our father leaving us, I said quickly. Sarah looked down, a trace of guilt in her voice. Chris, I'll take care of you from now on. She reached out to pat his head. Chris slapped her hand away. I don't need anything from you. With that, he turned and ran out of the room. I sighed. I'm planning to give my entire share of Dad's inheritance to Chris. Sarah nodded immediately. Of course. And from now on, all of my money is yours to manage. I sneered inwardly. The thought of managing her money was revolting. The next day, I brought her the agreement my lawyer had drafted. My father died without a will, so my inheritance is legally considered marital property. If I want to give it all to Chris, I need you to sign this. Filled with guilt, Sarah signed all the documents without even reading them. As soon as she was gone, I pulled out the divorce petition I had hidden in the middle of the stack. I went to City Hall first, then to my lawyer's office to deal with my father's estate. A weight lifted off my shoulders. Once I had my father's ashes, I could finally be free of Sarah forever. After an execution, the body isn't returned to the family. You can only collect the ashes. Today was the day. My heart aching, I went to the collection office, only to be told that Sarah had already picked them up. I knew this couldn't be an act of kindness. I found her and demanded, "Where are my father's ashes?" Sarah hesitated. "Ethan's mother has been having terrible nightmares since your father passed away." I snorted. She let an innocent man die for a crime. Of course, she's having nightmares. It's called a conscience. Ethan found some spiritualists for her, Sarah continued, and he said they need your father's ashes for a ritual to break the curse. What? I stared at her, my eyes wide with disbelief and rage. What right did you have to give them my father's ashes? Sarah stood up. Don't panic. I'll take you to get them back right now. She drove me to the Donovans' house. When Ethan opened the door, he feigned surprise. What are you two doing here? Is this about Mr. Harris's ashes? Seeing the look on his face, a terrible feeling washed over me. Where are my father's ashes? I demanded. Give them back. When Ethan didn't answer, I impatiently pushed past him and into the house. But after a quick search of the main floor, I found nothing. Where are they? I demanded. Ethan timidly pointed toward a door. I threw it open and found myself staring into a bathroom. You kept my father's ashes in a bathroom? I rushed in and snatched the urn off the floor. It was covered in dusty footprints. What did you do? I roared. The spiritualist said his spirit was restless. Ethan mumbled. He said to put the urn in the dirtiest place and step on it to weigh it down. People with a clear conscience don't fear ghosts. I screamed. You two are evil conspirators who murdered an innocent man. Nothing you do will save you. You just wait for karma to find you. Just then, Mrs. Donovan came out, looking pale and frail. Oh, you can't take that. I have nightmares every night. The ritual isn't finished. She reached out to grab the urn. Mom, stop, Ethan said, pretending to hold her back. Daniel's been through enough. Let's just drop it. But he was actually helping her, pulling on my arm. He gave a hard tug, and the urn crashed to the floor. Dad, I cried out. I knelt down to retrieve it and saw that the lid was stained with blood. My mind went blank as I opened the urn. My father's ashes were soaked in blood. The spiritualist said it takes dog's blood to contain a vengeful spirit. Ethan explained calmly. My hands shaking. I closed the lid as tears splashed onto the tile floor. I felt so useless. I couldn't save him when he was alive, and now I couldn't even protect his remains from being defiled by these monsters. I let out a roar of pure rage, grabbed a vase from a nearby table, and swung it at Ethan's head. You're the evil spirits. You and Sarah, you're all demons. But the vase never made contact with him. Sarah had thrown herself in front of him, taking the blow for him. Blood streamed down the side of her face. Have you had enough? She asked coldly. My father died in place of his mother. I shot back, my eyes burning. They kept his ashes in a bathroom, stomped on them, and soaked them in dog's blood. They desecrated his memory. And you have the nerve to ask if I've had enough? Sarah wiped the blood from her face. When you're dead, you're dead. There are no ghosts. Mrs. Donovan is old, and this gives her some peace of mind. The living are more important than the dead. My father had been murdered, and now he was expected to provide comfort to his killer. It was the most twisted joke I had ever heard. I started to laugh, a hollow, empty sound. The dead aren't as important as the living. I stared straight into her eyes. My father was a living person once. Do you remember why he died? My question left her speechless. I picked up my father's urn and walked out. I went back to the apartment I shared with Sarah, grabbed my passport, and without taking anything else, headed straight for O'Hare. At the airport, I got an iMessage from Sarah. Mrs. Donovan and Ethan have forgiven your outburst. Tomorrow is her birthday party, and they've invited you to come. They desecrated my father's remains. And now, they were forgiving me? Why did they have to forgive me? The audacity was breathtaking. I, the victim's son, would never forgive the people who murder my father. I snapped my SIM card in half and got on the plane. I clutched my father's urn to my chest. How is this fair? Tomorrow, the murderer would be celebrating her birthday in style, while my kind, gentle father was nothing but a box of cold ashes. A single tear rolled down my cheek. I stared out the window of the plane. The next time I returned, it would be to finalize my divorce and bring every last one of those monsters to justice. Sarah sent the iMessage to Daniel, but never got a reply. Before Ethan had come back, their relationship had been strong. This was the first time Daniel had ever ignored her messages for this long. Sarah just assumed Daniel was still sulking. She was about to send him another message when Ethan called out to her. Sarah, I can't seem to get this decoration right. Could you give me a hand? Sarah put down her phone and went to help Ethan with the party decorations. Tomorrow was his mother's birthday. Just a little while ago, Sarah had watched Daniel storm out of the Donovan's house, and her first instinct had been to run after him. Instead, Ethan had pulled her away to help inspect the venue for the party. Sarah couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt toward her ex-boyfriend, the one she'd dated from college until after she'd started her career. Back then, she had been young and headstrong, making a lot of enemies in her job at the courthouse. Ethan had been dragged into her troubles and put in danger more than once. But during the incident that nearly killed her, he had broken up with her. She had resented him for it, believing he was a coward who had abandoned her and fled the country to save his own skin. Out of spite, she had proposed to Daniel. For years, the very mention of Ethan's name filled her with disgust. She couldn't stand cowards, but she never could have imagined the truth. Ethan hadn't abandoned her. He was gravely ill. He had only returned home now that his condition had stabilized. The thought of Ethan, all alone in a foreign country, nearly dying so far from home, while she had spent all these years hating him, filled Sarah with an immense guilt. If only she hadn't impulsively married Daniel. And yet, deep down, she didn't regret her marriage to Daniel. She couldn't even picture what her life would be like if she had married Ethan. At some point, without her even realizing it, all her plans for the future had begun to revolve around Daniel. And this only made her feel even more guilty about Ethan. She was the one whose heart had changed. She had wronged him. She hadn't been by his side when he was sick, and now he had dragged his frail body all the way back home only to be confronted with the news of her marriage. That's why she knew Ethan's fragile health could never withstand the shock of losing his mother. It wouldn't just be one life lost, but two. It was a decision that had tormented Sarah for a long time. How could she let an innocent man die? But then Ethan had told her that Daniel's father never really intended to go through with the business deal. He was just afraid of offending Sarah, his powerful daughter-in-law. According to Ethan, Mr. Harris had deliberately let it slip to Mrs. Donovan that her husband was bringing his mistress to the business meeting. That was what pushed her over the edge and caused her to kill the woman in a fit of passion. In a way, Daniel's father was indirectly responsible for her death. The revelation had filled Sarah with rage. If Mr. Harris didn't want to help the Donovans, he could have just said no. Why resort to such a cruel, manipulative scheme? All for a business deal. He had caused the death of a human being. Mrs. Donovan had simply lost control of her emotions. But to deliberately use a cruel plot to get what you want, resulting in someone's death, that was true evil. And so, Sarah had intentionally sentenced Mr. Harris to death. She knew Daniel would never believe her if she told him the truth about his father. He had told her so many stories about his father's kindness and generosity. In Daniel's eyes, his father was a hero. She couldn't bear to shatter that image for him. So, she chose to let Daniel hate her instead. She decided that years from now, when the pain had faded, she would finally tell him the truth. Sarah and Ethan were at the venue until well after midnight. Even though a professional event company had handled all the arrangements, Ethan found fault with everything. The flowers were the wrong kind, the linens were the wrong color. He even made them recalibrate all the lighting. "Ethan," Sarah said, exasperated, "it all looks fine. There's no need to be so particular." A sad look crossed Ethan's face. "I just don't know how much time I have left. What if this is the last birthday I ever get to celebrate with my mom? I want her to be perfect. I want to give her a memory she can cherish." His words immediately softened her heart. "Don't say that," she comforted him. "Your health is improving, isn't it? I heard they've developed a new experimental drug in Europe. You're going to live to be 100. Ethan moved to embrace her, his voice thick with emotion. "But what's the point of living to be 100 if I don't have you by my side?" Sarah gently but firmly pushed him away. "Ethan, I'm married now. You'll find someone else, someone better." He pulled her into a hug, sobbing. "There's no one better than you. When I was away, I never stopped thinking about you. Not for a single day." "I'm sorry," Sarah sighed, pushing him away again. "I know I wronged you, but I can't leave Daniel." Ethan shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "No, that's not it. You only married him to get back at me. You're just confused. Sarah, you promised you would only ever love me." Sarah was silent for a moment before lowering her head. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I broke my promise." She didn't know if she would have still fallen for Daniel if she had known the truth back then. But there are no what-ifs in life. The reality was, over the years she spent with Daniel, her resentment toward Ethan had slowly faded away. She didn't love him anymore, but she didn't hate him either. Her heart was filled with only one thing, her future with Daniel. Since it was so late, Sarah didn't go home, checking into a nearby hotel for the night instead. The next morning, worried about Ethan's health, she went over early to help. The two of them stood at the entrance greeting guests, looking for all the world like the perfect couple. One of the guests even commented, "Is that Mr. Donovan's new daughter-in-law? Look at them. They're so perfect together." Others chimed in, "She is. Old man Donovan is a lucky guy. I hear she's a high-ranking judge, too. So young, with a brilliant career ahead of her." Ethan glanced at Sarah with a shy smile, doing nothing to correct them. A jolt went through Sarah. Had everyone misunderstood their relationship? Did that mean she hadn't been maintaining proper boundaries with Ethan? No wonder Daniel was so insecure, lashing out at Ethan time and time again. If that was the case, she couldn't entirely blame Daniel. She was the one who had let guilt cloud her judgment, creating this misunderstanding. Daniel cared about her so much. Of course, this would make him feel insecure. She had always known how Daniel felt about her. She, Daniel, and Ethan had all been classmates in high school. Back then, Daniel would blush every time he saw her. It was impossible not to know how he felt. But Sarah was focused on becoming a judge, so she turned down every boy who asked her out. That included Ethan. But Daniel had never been one of them. He never confessed his feelings. After high school, Sarah and Daniel ended up at the University of Chicago together. Ethan's grades weren't as good, but he enrolled at a smaller college right next door. Back then, Sarah had thought for sure that Daniel would finally ask her out, but he never did. Instead, it was Ethan who pursued her grandly and relentlessly. Sarah had always been calm and composed, but often the most composed people are the ones most easily swept away by a fiery, passionate nature. So, after 3 years of Ethan's very public and persistent pursuit, Sarah was finally won over. And all that time, Daniel had watched from the sidelines. Sometimes, Sarah would catch a glimpse of the sad expression on his face as he watched her and Ethan together. She thought he was too shy for his own good. How could someone like a girl for so many years and never say a word? But at the same time, it showed her just how deep his feelings ran. She assumed that once she started dating Ethan, Daniel would finally move on. After all, how painful must it have been for him to watch her with someone else? But he didn't. Daniel was always there, watching from a distance. She remembered one day, wearing a simple white blouse, the wind caught the hem, and the look on his face was one of such profound sadness she thought he might shatter. His silent love for her had lasted a decade. It's easy to be careless with a heart you know is yours. And that was why, no matter how much she hurt Daniel, she was always so certain he would never leave. But now, Daniel had lost his father and had been punished by her repeatedly for lashing out at Ethan. Sarah imagined him hiding somewhere, crying alone, just like he used to watch her from the shadows. The memory of him in college, standing under a blossoming pear tree in a white button-down shirt, made her heart ache. She couldn't let this misunderstanding with Daniel continue. So, Sarah cleared her throat and announced, "Excuse me, everyone. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Ethan and I are just old friends from college. Nothing more. I'm a married woman." The smile on Ethan's face froze, and for a split second, a venomous look flashed in his eyes. He couldn't believe Sarah would publicly deny their connection. It was a slap in the face. The old Sarah would never have done that. It had to be Daniel. That bastard must have poisoned her against him. Ethan quickly smoothed his expression back into a harmless mask. But the red crescent marks in his palm, where his nails had dug in, betrayed his resolve to make Daniel pay. He and his mother had invited Daniel today, and it certainly wasn't out of the goodness of their hearts. He had tried everything to win Sarah back, but she wouldn't budge. That left him with only one option: get rid of Daniel. Once Daniel was out of the picture, he would be by Sarah's side every day. How could she resist him then? If Daniel showed his face here today, he would make sure it was a day he would never forget. The party began, but Daniel was nowhere to be seen. Sarah kept glancing toward the entrance. He hadn't answered her iMessage, and now he was a no-show at the party. Was he still that angry with her? She knew what Ethan and his mother did with the ashes was wrong. But then again, Daniel had tried to smash a vase over Ethan's head. The cut on her own forehead was still bandaged, and she hadn't held it against Daniel. Ethan came to her side. "Daniel still not here? Is he still mad at me? Maybe I should go apologize. My mom's old. You know how she gets with those spiritualists. I couldn't stop her. Tell you what, I'll even let him hit me with another vase if it makes him feel better." "Don't be ridiculous. You're supposed to be sick," Sarah said, her brow furrowed. "And it was wrong of him to try and hurt you. If he doesn't want to come, that's his problem. Let's just forget about him." And with that, she turned and went inside with Ethan, putting Daniel out of her mind. The Donovans' family business had been declining for years. Otherwise, they never would have been in a crisis that required help from Daniel's father. Consequently, most of the guests here today were business partners of a similar standing to the Harris family. Ethan's friends from the welcome home party were here as well. Sarah wasn't in business herself, but power often trumps money. As a high-ranking judge at such a young age, her career potential was boundless, and no one knew when they might need a friend in the judicial system. So, a steady stream of people came over to make small talk with her. Sarah had always hated the phony pleasantries of the business world. Before long, she slipped away unnoticed. Young people were all the same. None of them enjoyed listening to the older generation ramble on. Once outside, she saw that Ethan's friends had also snuck out. They were all standing by the pool, laughing and talking amongst themselves. Sarah had no desire to speak with them, so she found a quiet, dimly lit spot to sit down. At first, they were talking about new limited edition watches, then moved on to the latest business world gossip. Sarah was so bored, she nearly fell asleep. Then, someone brought up Daniel. Sarah has been by Ethan's side all day. You think she's finally going to divorce Daniel? They were the perfect couple to begin with. If Daniel hadn't shamelessly forced his way in, Ethan never would have been driven out of the country. Exactly. I can't stand homewreckers. Sarah's brow furrowed in anger. Who was calling Daniel a homewrecker? Back when she and Ethan had broken up for no apparent reason and he'd left the country, no one knew the real story. Sarah had never told anyone that Ethan had abandoned her out of cowardice. Even though she now knew that was a misunderstanding, the fact remained that Daniel was not a homewrecker. Their breakup had nothing to do with him. Ethan had left the country for medical treatment. What was all this nonsense they were spouting? Sarah was just about to stand up and set the record straight. She wouldn't let them slander Daniel like that. But before she could move, the next word she heard struck her like a needle to the heart, freezing her in place. Too bad that homewrecker Daniel didn't drown last time. If I'd known, I would have hit him with something sharper than a glass. I regret it too. When he got to the edge of the pool, I only got a couple of kicks in. I should have held his head underwater until he stopped breathing. Suddenly, Sarah remembered the last party. She had stepped away to take a call, and when she returned, Daniel was a mess, with blood pouring from a cut on his forehead. And what had they told her then? They'd claimed Daniel had hurt himself on purpose to get her sympathy. But the truth was, the moment her back was turned, they had tormented him. Who were you planning on drowning? Sarah's voice was like ice. They all jumped when they saw her, stammering, unable to form a coherent sentence. She strode over, her face a mask of fury, and grabbed the boy who had been speaking the loudest. She squeezed his shoulder hard. "Last time, when I wasn't here, what exactly did you do to Daniel?" The boy winced in pain and spat back. "He's just a homewrecker. Why are you defending him? What about your history with Ethan?" Have you forgotten what you owe him? Sarah's eyes narrowed. The next second, she shoved the boy into the pool. Daniel is not a homewrecker, she announced, her voice ringing with authority. Ethan broke up with me. I only got together with Daniel after he left. If I ever hear any of you slander my husband again, I will sue every last one of you for defamation. A girl standing nearby spoke up hesitantly. Daniel's not a homewrecker, but Ethan told us. Sarah. Ethan came running over. He looked at the boy sputtering in the pool and then back at her. Sarah, what happened? His arrival only fueled her anger. Seeing him, Sarah instantly remembered how she had asked about Daniel's injury. Ethan and his friends had all given her the same story. Daniel had done it to himself to play the victim. Sarah's voice was ice. Last time, by the pool, when I stepped away to take that call. What did you all do to Daniel? They were tormenting him, and you stood there and told me he hurt himself. Seeing that she only knew part of the story, Ethan breathed a small sigh of relief. He put on a pathetic look. You're right, I was wrong. My friends were just being impulsive. They were just trying to stick up for me. I wanted to stop them, but you know my health. I lied because I didn't want to make a big scene. They were only trying to help me, and it wouldn't have been right to betray them. While Sarah despised injustice, she also admired loyalty. Ethan's explanation calmed her down slightly. And what's this about everyone calling Daniel a homewrecker? She demanded. We need to clear this up right now, in front of everyone. I won't have Daniel's name dragged through the mud. Ethan reluctantly nodded, tears welling in his eyes. You've all misunderstood, he choked out. Sarah and I, it was my fault we broke up. It had nothing to do with Daniel. To his friends, his heartbroken act made it seem as though he was being forced to say it. Their minds were already made up. None of them believed him. Sarah raised her voice. Let me make this perfectly clear. My husband is not a homewrecker. We only got together after Ethan and I had broken up and he had left the country. The crowd was silent. Sarah didn't care what they thought. She continued. Your actions at the last party constituted assault, defamation, and harassment. How do you propose we handle this? In the presence of a judge, none of them dared to utter a word. Ethan grabbed her arm, pleading. Sarah, they only did it because of me. I know it was wrong, but their hearts were in the right place. Can't you just let it go? But Sarah pushed him away. No, she said sternly. They tormented Daniel for no reason. If I don't stand up for him, what kind of wife would that make me? Then what do you want from them? Ethan asked hesitantly. Sarah pointed to the pool. You all seem to enjoy playing in the water, don't you? If you want me to drop this, you will all jump in that pool and give each other a taste of the treatment you gave my husband. Sarah, Ethan cried out. Isn't that a little extreme? Sarah snorted. When they're facing jail time, then we can talk about what's extreme. The kids, they were all from rich families, used to a life of leisure with no real responsibility, completely dependent on their parents' money. If they were actually taken to court, their families would cut them off completely. There would be no more new cars or designer watches. Besides, offending a judge with a promising career would earn them an earful from their parents. So once the first one jumped in, the rest followed, one after another. The water was frigid. They gasped as they hit the water, and a few even screamed. But Sarah showed no mercy. Get on with it, she urged. I thought you all enjoyed a good fight. Hesitantly, they began to shove each other. Is that all you got? Sarah asked, her voice dripping with scorn. Do I need to throw a knife in there to get you started? Her words spurred them into action. They were the kind of friends who were polite to each other's faces, but secretly ran in their own little cliques. They all had their own rivalries and resentments simmering just below the surface. Given the opportunity, it was inevitable that some would take the chance to settle old scores. The shoves turned into punches, and soon, they were all fighting in earnest. It escalated into a mess of pulled hair and scratched faces. Some were held underwater, choking on the freezing water. Others ended up with bruised and bleeding faces, crying out in pain. Only then, satisfied, did Sarah turn and walk away. Ethan hurried after her. Sarah, are you mad? Please don't be mad at me. Sarah snorted. I thought you were an honest person, Ethan, but you lied to my face to protect your friends. If you weren't so sick, I'd say you needed a dip in that pool to wash away your own lies. Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. Sarah, I didn't mean to lie. I tried to stop them when they were ganging up on Daniel. I really did. But what was I supposed to do? Turn my back on the friends who were just trying to defend my honor. When Sarah got home, Daniel wasn't there. Thinking back on the humiliation he had endured at the Donovan's house, she finally understood why he was so furious. No wonder he hadn't answered her iMessage. He had suffered so much, and she hadn't even seen the worst of it. For the first time in a long while, Sarah took the initiative and called him. But her calls went straight to voicemail. She tried sending another iMessage, only to see the not delivered notification. Her eyes widened in disbelief. The red exclamation point felt like a personal insult. Daniel had actually blocked her. Sarah immediately jumped in her car and drove to Daniel's office. After college, with his father's backing, Daniel had started his own small company. It had become quite successful over the last few years. As she always did, Sarah walked past the reception desk and headed straight for his office. But this time, the receptionist stopped her. "Ma'am, can I help you? You need an appointment to go back there." Sarah looked at the unfamiliar receptionist. "You must be new. I'm the owner's wife." The receptionist gave her a strange look, as if she were crazy. "Our boss is a woman." "A woman?" Sarah asked, confused. "Isn't Daniel Harris the owner?" The receptionist shook her head. "I'm sorry, the company was just acquired. Are you looking for the previous owner?" Sarah was stunned. "Acquired? When did that happen?" "Not long ago," the receptionist replied. "Less than 2 weeks, I think. We haven't even had time to change the sign out front." Sarah was speechless. Why would Daniel sell his company without telling her? Then it hit her. 2 weeks ago. That was before his father's execution. Had he sold the company then? It made sense. She had been adamant about his father's guilt, and Daniel had been just as determined to prove his innocence. Of course, he wouldn't have told her, but Sarah knew how much of his heart and soul Daniel had poured into that company. He must have been devastated to sell it. A seed of doubt began to sprout in her mind. Had she made the right choice in letting his father take the fall? Even if Mr. Harris had used a cruel trick that indirectly led to the murder, legally, he was innocent. And to save him, Daniel had sacrificed everything. Would he ever be able to forgive her for that? Could they ever truly go back to the way things were? Thinking of her unanswered calls, a wave of fear washed over her. What if Daniel had disappeared for good? But she quickly reassured herself. That wouldn't happen. If she had to, she would tell Daniel the truth about what his father had done. It would break his heart. It would shatter the heroic image he had of his father. But that was better than letting their marriage fall apart. After the incident at the party, Sarah had become cold and distant with Ethan. She ignored his calls and iMessages. And when he tried to visit her at the courthouse, she turned him away, saying she was too busy with work. Ethan was growing desperate. Of course, he had feelings for Sarah, but no feeling was more important than his own life. That was why, after her job had put him in danger multiple times, he had left without a second thought. He wasn't sick, of course. That was just a lie to win her sympathy. He had been living it up in Europe, but then the money from his family started to dry up. When he could no longer afford his lifestyle, he had no choice but to come home. He never expected that someone as reckless as Sarah could have risen through the ranks so quickly, becoming the youngest judge on the bench in just 5 years. He was jealous, of course, but more importantly, her position could be a huge asset to his family's company. With her connections, even if she wasn't in a directly relevant department, the Donovan family would have a much easier time navigating the bureaucracy. So, married or not, he was determined to win her back. But every time he tried to see her, she gave him the cold shoulder. Ethan knew how stubborn she could be. So, he decided to play his trump card. He faked a relapse. That finally got her to soften. Sarah rushed him to his usual private hospital and called his family. Mrs. Donovan finally arrived, taking her time, with not a hint of worry on her face. Sarah frowned. That was strange. What mother wouldn't be worried sick if her son was in the hospital? But when Mrs. Donovan saw her, she quickly put on a show. "Oh, I knew he would be in good hands with you. I didn't want to intrude, so I gave you two some time alone. Thank you for taking care of him, Sarah." Sarah shook her head. "It was nothing, Mrs. Donovan. I'll leave him in your care now. I have to get back to the courthouse." Mrs. Donovan politely walked her to the door, watching until she was out of sight before turning back to the room. After a few steps, Sarah stopped. She suddenly remembered this was the same hospital where Daniel had been a patient. A wave of worry washed over her. Where was he? She hadn't seen or heard from him in days. Just then, 2 nurses walked past. Sarah's hearing was sharp, and she overheard one of them say to the other, "Be careful when you go into room 303. Room 303. Sarah frowned. That was Ethan's room. "Why?" the other nurse asked. "What's wrong with 303? The old lady in there," the first nurse whispered. "She's one of those people who fakes accidents." "Really? What makes you say that?" "I saw it myself. She was with some young guy, and she grabbed his hand. He didn't even move, and she just let go and threw herself on the floor. Probably trying to get some money out of him. Just be careful not to even brush up against her, or she'll probably try to sue you. Those few sentences hit Sarah like a ton of bricks. The young guy who was set up, that had to have been Daniel. But Mrs. Donovan hadn't been after money. She had been trying to frame him. She had dated Ethan for years, so she knew his mother well. Every time they met, Mrs. Donovan had been warm and friendly. She never would have dreamed she was capable of something so malicious. Sarah slammed her fist against the wall. How much had Daniel been forced to endure? And what had she done? She knew his father's death was the most painful thing he had ever experienced, and yet she had forced him to watch other men be executed in the very same way. She slapped herself hard across the face. What had she done? With the pool incident, Ethan had claimed he was just being a loyal friend. But what about this? What part had he played in his mother's scheme? Was he really as innocent and ignorant as he claimed to be? Sarah took out her badge and headed for the security office. She pulled up the footage from that day. From several different angles, the video clearly showed that Daniel hadn't moved a muscle. Mrs. Donovan had orchestrated the entire fall herself. Unfortunately, the camera was too far away to make out what Ethan had said to Daniel before she had come over. But the look on Ethan's face was one of pure, venomous spite, a look she had never seen on him before. He certainly hadn't been comforting Daniel. Just how many lies had this man told her? She remembered how at the party, all of Ethan's friends had called Daniel homewrecker. Sarah tracked down Ethan's friends, one by one. After questioning them all, she finally learned the truth. Ethan had told them all that he had left the country because Daniel had destroyed his relationship with Sarah. He never mentioned a word about being sick. Sarah had one of the friends get her the security footage from the night Daniel was forced into the pool, waiting until Ethan and his mother were out. Ethan used to throw parties at his house all the time, so his friends knew the household staff well. The friend used the excuse that Ethan was in the hospital and needed him to check the security tapes, and the staff handed over the footage without any questions. Sarah played the video, fast-forwarding to the night of the party. At first, it was just Daniel standing alone by the pool. Then Ethan approached him, his face a mask of contempt. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but then Ethan made a motion as if throwing something into the water, and then he started to scream. Sarah closed her eyes and took a deep, shaky breath. So, Daniel had never thrown Ethan's pills into the pool. The Donovans, mother and son, were both pathological liars and manipulators. She buried her face in her hands, sick with regret. What had she done? Daniel had told her he didn't do it. He had begged her to check the cameras, and she hadn't believed him. She, a paragon of the law, had condemned him without a shred of evidence. She had forced him to search for that tiny pill bottle in that freezing cold water. She was drowning in regret. Why hadn't she trusted him? With tears in her eyes, she kept watching. What she saw next made her see red. They had pelted him with objects, and Ethan had even stomped on him, forcing him back into the water. Daniel's face was ghostly pale as he struggled in the water, nearly drowning. The blood from his head wound was quickly washed away by the pool water. But the humiliation he suffered that night, the pain in his heart, that would not be so easily washed away. A tidal wave of regret crashed over her, and the more her heart ached, the angrier she became. She stormed into Ethan's hospital room to find him and his mother laughing together. Seeing the look on her face, Ethan asked cautiously, "Sarah, what's wrong?" Sarah threw her phone at him. He recognized the video immediately. It was the security footage from his pool. A jolt of panic went through him, but he forced a smile. "Sarah, what is this? It looks like footage from my house, but that's impossible. My cameras were broken that day. Whoever gave you this must have faked it." Sarah laughed coldly. "You're still trying to lie to me?" "I'm not lying," Ethan insisted, shaking his head. "Go to my house and see for yourself. The system is still down. It hasn't even been repaired yet." Sarah scoffed. "Is that so? I suppose the hospital's security footage was fake, too?" She swiped to the next video, the one that clearly showed his mother's performance. "I was just trying to do what's best for my son. Ethan was away getting treatment, and that boy took advantage. I just wanted you to be with Ethan again." Mrs. Donovan looked embarrassed as she tried to explain. What mother doesn't want what's best for her son? "I admit my methods were a little unorthodox, but you have to understand. We don't know how much time Ethan has left. I just want him to be happy." By the end of her speech, she was choking back sobs, the very picture of a loving, devoted mother. But this time, Sarah wasn't moved. Mrs. Donovan loved her son, but did that give her the right to frame and torment Daniel? Daniel had lost his own mother when he was just a child. Suddenly, the saying like mother, like son made perfect sense. The two of them were a match set of manipulative actors. Sarah stared hard at Ethan until he began to squirm under her gaze. "Sarah, I know what my mom did was wrong," he said pitifully, "but she was only trying to help me. If you have to be angry with someone, be angry with me." Sarah ignored him. "You've told so many lies," she said. "Don't tell me your illness is a lie too." This time, Ethan's panic was real. "Of course not," he said nervously. "Who would joke about something like that? Besides, Sarah, even if you don't believe me, you have to believe the doctors. Go on, ask them yourself." But instead, Sarah grabbed his wrist. "I don't trust your doctors. We're going to a different hospital. Sarah, let me go." Ethan couldn't risk seeing another doctor. He had paid off the doctors at this hospital handsomely. Any other doctor would expose his lie immediately. He struggled in her grip. "Sarah, you're hurting me." His mother jumped in, trying to pull her away. "What are you doing? Let go of my son." When she couldn't break Sarah's grip, she started beating on her back. Annoyed, Sarah whipped her head around and warned, "Have you forgotten the penalty for murder? I was the one who got you cleared. I can just as easily put you away." The threat was enough to freeze Mrs. Donovan in her tracks. The thought of prison, let alone execution, terrified her. Sarah dragged Ethan into her car and drove straight to a hospital affiliated with the court system. No one there would dare to lie to a judge. Ethan cried and begged the whole way, but Sarah's heart was like stone. The doctors at the hospital, assuming he was a prisoner, were unfazed by his protests and simply forced him to undergo a full examination. The only unusual thing was that Sarah had brought him in herself. She brushed off their questions, mentioning a confidential case. Soon, the test results were back. Ethan was in perfect health. There was nothing wrong with him. Sarah closed her eyes and took a long drag from a cigarette. She didn't usually smoke. She hated the idea of being addicted to anything. But right now, she needed the nicotine to numb the ache in her heart. Lies. It had all been lies. Ethan had been a coward. He had abandoned her to save his own skin. All the talk about being sick, about not wanting to break her heart, it was all fake. And she had felt so guilty. She had indulged his every whim, trying to make up for something that had never even happened. And this was the truth. She had stopped loving Ethan long ago. It wasn't the betrayal that hurt. It was the realization of how deeply she had wounded Daniel because of these lies. Sarah couldn't bear to even think about it. When Ethan was brought out, he saw the dark look on her face and didn't dare to speak. Sarah finished her cigarette. "I have one question for you," she said. "Back when I was kidnapped, were you the one who saved me?" In the time she'd been waiting, Sarah had already figured it out. A coward like Ethan would never have risked his own life to save her. But after a moment's hesitation, Ethan nodded. "Yes, it was me." The sharp crack of a slap echoed in the small room. "I'll give you one more chance," Sarah said, her voice dangerously low. Ethan gritted his teeth. "I saved you." He knew she wouldn't believe him easily, but his real rescuer was a mystery. As long as that person remained unknown, he would never admit he was lying. It was the last card he had to play. Another slap. Sarah asked him the question 10 times, and each time, she slapped him across the face. By the end, the corner of his mouth was split and bleeding. "The person who saved me was Daniel," Sarah said. "How dare you try to take his credit?" She had known the answer before she even asked the question. With every slap she delivered to Ethan, it felt as though she were striking her own foolish, younger self. Daniel had told her the truth, and she hadn't believed him. The thought of how much she must have hurt him was unbearable. She didn't know how she could ever face him again. And this was all Ethan's fault. She would make him pay. Even though he hadn't technically committed a crime, Sarah didn't care. She trumped up a charge and had him thrown in jail. She had his friends thrown in there with him. They had dared to torment Daniel. They would all pay the price. Making them fight in the pool had been far too lenient. Soon after, Mrs. Donovan was arrested for murder. Sarah submitted the new evidence, admitting her previous ruling had been a miscarriage of justice and officially clearing Mr. Harris's name. The story was all over the news. Sarah received a severe reprimand for her actions, but she didn't care. All that mattered was finding Daniel, apologizing, and begging for his forgiveness. The day Mrs. Donovan was executed, Sarah paid a visit to Ethan in prison. She had released his friends, leaving Ethan to face her alone. Their eyes met across the visitor's room. A month in prison had stripped him of all his rich boy swagger. He was covered in bruises, so thin he was almost unrecognizable. Sarah had made sure he was placed in a cell with the most violent offenders. He was beaten daily, starved, and forced to serve as brutal cellmates. The slightest mistake earned him a savage beating. Some nights, he was forced to sleep on the floor by the toilet. Once, they had even held his head in it and made him drink. The place was a living hell. The moment he saw Sarah, Ethan threw himself at her feet, clinging to her legs and sobbing. "Sarah, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Please, just let me out of here. This place, it's not fit for a human being. If I stay here any longer, I'm going to die." Sarah laughed, a cold, empty sound. "Dee, you're not going to die. But your mother, she's dead. For real. Dead." For a fleeting moment, a pang of grief shot through him, but it was quickly eclipsed by his own terror. It had taken so long for Sarah to visit. If she left him here, he knew he wouldn't survive. So, without shedding a single tear for his mother, he continued to beg. "Sarah, my mother paid for her crimes. And I lied to you, I know, but I didn't break any laws. I've been through hell in here. Please, I'm begging you, just let me go." But Sarah just kicked him away. "Until I find Daniel, and he forgives me," she said. "You're not going anywhere." She turned to leave. Ethan scrambled to the door, pounding on it in desperation. "Don't go. Sarah, don't leave me here. Let me out." But no matter how pathetically he pleaded, Sarah didn't slow her pace. Her mind was focused on one person only, Daniel. But Daniel had vanished without a trace. She had searched everywhere, but it was like he had disappeared off the face of the earth. Finally, she asked a friend who worked in customs and got a hit, Daniel's international departure record. Holding his father's urn, Daniel drifted into an uneasy sleep. He was utterly exhausted. He dreamed of his father taking him to an amusement park when he was a little boy. He woke with tears streaming down his face. He realized he had slumped over in his sleep and frantically opened the urn to check on the contents. The ashes were mixed with the dog's blood, which had now congealed into a dark, clotted mess. The thought that his father had been subjected to such a vile desecration, even in death, shattered his heart all over again. He felt like a complete failure. But no matter what, he would not let the perpetrators get away with this. And Sarah, she had knowingly broken a law. He would make sure she faced the full consequences. "Excuse me, sir. Is there anything I can do to help?" As Daniel stared into the urn, a soft voice beside him broke through his trance. He turned to see a woman with kind eyes behind a pair of glasses. She was pretty, with an intelligent, scholarly air about her. But Daniel was in no mood to speak with a stranger. He just shook his head. "No, thank you. My name is Rachel Peterson," she said. "I'm a chemist. This might be forward, but that looks like an urn, and it seems the ashes are mixed with some kind of liquid. You look so upset. I just thought I'd ask if you need any help." Daniel stopped crying. "A chemist?" he repeated, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Was it possible to separate the ashes from blood? His tone softened. He told her it was dog's blood. He dreaded her next question, dreaded having to explain why his father's ashes were defiled with dog's blood. It would only be another reminder of his failure to protect them. But thankfully, Rachel was tactful. She simply said she could help. Daniel was overcome with relief. "That's amazing. I'll pay you, of course. Whatever it takes." Rachel just shrugged. "Let me see what I can do when we get off the plane." His spirits lifted, and for a moment, he even forgot his physical pain. For the rest of the flight, they chatted occasionally. Daniel learned that Rachel was a professor at a university in London. This gave Daniel even more confidence that she could help him. He and Rachel exchanged numbers, and they made a plan to meet at her lab. After they deplaned, Daniel scanned the crowd for his brother. Soon, he saw Chris running toward him. Chris threw his arms around him, his eyes wet with tears. Daniel ruffled his brother's hair. "Come on, let's go." Chris's plans to study abroad had been made while their father was still alive. The recent tragedy had thrown everything into chaos, but thankfully, Chris was still able to attend university. Daniel himself had almost nothing left, but his father's entire estate was now in Chris's name. For all her faults, Sarah had never been greedy for their money. She had signed away her claim to the inheritance without a second thought. Chris had already found a flat for Daniel near his campus. He knew his older brother had been through hell. He insisted that Daniel should take all of their father's inheritance. "I'm a grown man now," he said. "I can support myself. It's my turn to take care of you." Seeing his brother act with such maturity filled Daniel with a profound sense of pride. He playfully smacked his brother on the head. "You just focus on your studies. Your big brother has a degree from a top university, you know. Don't you worry about me." Daniel had planned to send Chris back to his dorm that night, but Chris, having just been reunited with his brother, refused to leave, insisting on staying up late to talk. Early the next morning, Daniel asked Chris for directions to an address. "What's up?" Chris asked, confused. Daniel dreaded having to tell his younger brother the truth about what had happened to their father's ashes. But he felt he had no right to keep it from him. If he hadn't married Sarah, their father would still be alive. Chris would never have been thrown in jail, would never have lost his father, and nearly his chance at a future. When he finished the story, Chris slammed his fist on the arm of the sofa, his face flushed with rage. "That woman is a monster. If I ever see her again, I swear I'll kill her." Daniel quickly tried to calm him down. "I'll make sure Sarah gets what she deserves. Chris, don't worry. And look, didn't I just happen to meet someone on the plane who can help us fix Dad's ashes? I think it's a sign from him that he's watching over us." Chris took the address and glanced at it. "Hey, this is my university," he said, surprised. "Your university?" Daniel echoed. He'd been so consumed by everything that he hadn't even had time to think about where Chris was studying. His only thought had been getting him out of the country, away from Sarah's reach. He felt a pang of guilt. He was such a terrible older brother, he didn't even know where his own brother went to college. When Chris asked for the woman's name, his eyes lit up. "Professor Peterson? She's pretty famous on campus. It's amazing that she offered to help." The coincidence was too great to ignore. Daniel felt more certain than ever that his father was watching over them. Soon, Chris was leading him across campus to the chemistry lab. Chris had a class that afternoon, so Daniel sent him on his way. He knocked on the lab door, and Rachel appeared a moment later. She seemed to be in the middle of something, and Daniel waited for over half an hour before she finally came out and told him she was ready to work on his father's ashes. To have his father's remains restored, Daniel would have waited forever. He handed the urn to Rachel and waited anxiously in the hallway. The hour it took her felt longer than an entire day. Finally, Rachel emerged with the restored ashes. Daniel's eyes welled up with tears, and his voice was thick with emotion. "Thank you," he choked out. "Thank you so much. This means everything to me." Rachel nodded in understanding. "I've lived abroad for a long time, but I've always admired the cultural traditions from back home. It's a way of honoring the people we've lost." Daniel pulled himself together. "Professor Peterson, I really can't thank you enough. My brother is a student here, and he tells me you're quite respected in your field. I'm not sure what your usual fee is, but as we discussed, I insist on paying you for your time." But Rachel shook her head. "This is the university's lab. It wouldn't be right for me to accept payment for using their facilities." "But I can't let you do this for nothing," Daniel insisted. "I know how valuable a professor's time is." Finally, Rachel relented. "All right, how about you buy me dinner sometime?" Daniel, of course, agreed. Since he was new to the city, he let her pick the restaurant. With his father's ashes finally at peace, Daniel was visibly more relaxed. During dinner, Rachel learned that he was looking for a job and offered to help. Daniel shook his head. "You've already done so much for me. I couldn't possibly ask you to help me find a job, too. I'll figure something out." Daniel was a jewelry designer. With his father's backing, he had opened his own studio after college. It was small, but his custom designs were in high demand, and business had been booming. He had sold it to pay off a witness, but his passion for his work hadn't faded. He had no intention of giving up on his dream. But before he could even think about finding a new job, he had to find a final resting place for his father. Daniel and Chris had only been in London for a short time and didn't know many people. He looked at a few cemeteries, but wasn't satisfied with any of them. After their first dinner, Rachel had invited him out several more times. Daniel was a handsome man. He knew Rachel was interested in him. With anyone else, he would have politely declined. But ever since that chance meeting on the plane, ever since she had offered to help him with his father's ashes, it had felt like fate. In the first few hours of his new life, she had helped him heal his deepest wound. And the coincidence of her being a professor at his brother's university was too great to ignore. Daniel couldn't help but feel that his father had sent her to him. His father had never approved of his marriage to Sarah. He had seen from the very beginning that she didn't truly love him. But Daniel, blinded by a decade-long crush that had finally been reciprocated, had refused to listen. His father, who had always doted on him, had reluctantly given his blessing. Daniel bitterly regretted not listening to him. Perhaps Rachel's appearance was a comfort, a sign. He told himself that this was the daughter-in-law his father would have wanted for him. Of course, he wouldn't be so quick to trust again. He would have to get to know Rachel better. When she asked him what he'd been up to, he told her the truth about his search. "I might have a friend who can help with that," she said. Daniel was surprised. "You know people in that business, too?" Rachel adjusted her glasses with a smile. "Do I really seem like the purely academic type? I actually sit on the boards of a few different companies. I have some well-connected friends. I can ask around. This time, Daniel didn't refuse her offer. His father had been a traditional man, a businessman who, while not overly superstitious, still believed in things like feng shui. Daniel wanted his father's final resting place to be a peaceful one. This was too important. Daniel swallowed his pride and accepted her help. Chris had given him a debit card linked to the estate, insisting it was his rightful share. Their father had always said his fortune would be split evenly between them. Daniel had never planned to refuse his share, but after his marriage to Sarah had led to their father's death, and with Chris showing him nothing but support, he couldn't bring himself to take the money. But now, he had no choice but to use it. He vowed to pay his brother back, with interest, as soon as he was back on his feet. After purchasing a plot for his father, Daniel bought a gift for Rachel to thank her. That weekend, he took her out to dinner and gave her the gift. "You've helped me so much," he said. "This is just a small token of my appreciation. I hope you like it." Rachel glanced at the gift. "Daniel, this is too much. To be honest, I think you know the real reason I've been helping you is because I'm interested in you. So, I'm just going to ask, can I have a chance with you?" "No." Before Daniel could answer, a sharp, cold voice cut in from behind him. He didn't even need to turn around. He knew that voice anywhere. It was Sarah. She looked exhausted from travel, her long trench coat rumpled. Daniel's fingers tapped a silent rhythm on the tabletop, but he didn't move. Sarah came to stand beside their table. "Daniel," she said, her voice filled with relief. "I finally found you." Daniel calmly took a sip of his wine, his expression unreadable, as if she were a complete stranger. "Daniel, are you still angry with me?" she asked, her voice laced with desperation. "I know I made so many mistakes, but Ethan lied to me. Sarah," he said, his voice flat and cold, "I really don't want to see you right now." Her single sentence was like a blast of Arctic air, chilling her to the bone. She had never realized how cold a few words could make you feel. When she had hurled all those cruel words at Daniel, all for Ethan's sake, had he felt this same bone-deep chill? Or worse, had his heart frozen over completely? Sarah shook her head fiercely. No, she had to win him back. "Daniel, please, just give me one more chance." Daniel let out a cold, bitter laugh. "And who's going to give my father another chance?" he shot back. "Can you bring him back from the dead?" Sarah's lips tightened into a thin line. She was speechless. It was the uncrossable chasm between them, an agony that would never fade. It was only now, faced with losing him for good, that Sarah realized the truth. She couldn't live without him. Without even knowing it, she had fallen deeply in love with him. In a rare moment of humility, Sarah pleaded, "Daniel, this is all a misunderstanding. Can we please talk? Alone?" She glanced pointedly at Rachel, but I gave her no quarter. "There's nothing for us to talk about," I said flatly. "The only conversation I want to have with you is when you're behind bars." I grabbed my coat and stood up. "I'm sorry, Rachel," I said. "This dinner was a bust. Let me make it up to you another time." Rachel rose gracefully. "Of course," she said with a warm smile. "I like that very much." I started to walk away. Sarah moved to follow, but Rachel stepped in her path. For someone who looked so mild-mannered, she had a formidable presence. She physically blocked Sarah's path to me, met her gaze with a polite smile, and said, "Excuse me." As another woman, Sarah couldn't miss the challenge in her eyes. For the first time in her life, as an officer of the court, Sarah wanted to resort to violence. But she knew the priority was to explain everything to me, to somehow earn my forgiveness. But with Rachel's interference, I was already long gone. A profound sense of crisis washed over Sarah. Before she had left the country to find me, she had worried that I might never forgive her. But she had always reassured herself with the fact that I had loved her silently for 10 years before we were married for another 5. 15 years. That was a significant portion of anyone's life. How could I possibly be willing to let all of that go? And so, she had held on to the belief that she could win me back. After leaving the restaurant, Rachel drove me home. I hesitated for a moment at the door. "Would you like to come in for some coffee?" I asked. Rachel's eyes lit up, and she nodded, pleasantly surprised. I held the door open for her. I felt bad that our dinner had been cut short, and I wanted to make up for it. "You didn't get to finish your meal," I said. "How about I make you something? I can cook some Chinese food." Rachel couldn't believe her luck. Not only had she made her feelings known, but she was also in my apartment and about to eat a home-cooked meal prepared by me. "I was just craving Chinese food, actually." "Thank you," she said, rolling up her sleeves. "I can help wash the vegetables." I smiled and shook my head. You're the guest. No way. Just have a seat. Having lived abroad for so long, Rachel was very direct. But I told you I'm pursuing you. You shouldn't treat me like a guest. I'm a suitor. I was quiet for a moment. Professor Peterson, I should tell you, I'm not officially divorced yet. I filed the paperwork, but until it's finalized, I can't accept you pursuing me. That's fine, she said unfazed. We can just be friends for now. I'll resume my pursuit after your divorce is final. I paused. I hadn't expected her to take it so in stride. Her focus was clearly different from mine. I had been trying to gently remind her of my complicated situation, but I had to admit, her complete lack of concern was a refreshing change. We had a wonderful dinner together. I thought back to all the years I had cooked dinner for Sarah. She had never once complimented my cooking. I had forgotten how good it felt to be appreciated for even a small gesture. After we finished eating, I walked Rachel to the door. Later that night, I wasn't surprised to find Sarah waiting outside my door. She stepped forward, her face a mask of turmoil. Daniel, I know you blame me, and I know I did terrible things, but there were reasons. The death of that woman, your father was involved. He agreed to work with the Donovans, but he never intended to go through with it. He deliberately told Ethan's mother that her husband's mistress was pregnant, and he even lied and said Mr. Donovan was planning to divorce her. That's what pushed her over the edge. I just stared at her, as if she were a complete idiot. And your proof? I asked coldly. The color drained from her face. I let out a mocking laugh. Let me guess, Ethan told you this? Sarah, you're a judge. You take his word as gospel without a shred of evidence. You did it with me, and you did it with my father. How can you even call yourself a judge? Sarah opened her mouth, but no words came out. The truth was the thought that Ethan might be lying had crossed her mind, but she had been too afraid to confront him. If this, too, was a lie, then she would have to face the fact that she had condemned a truly innocent man. She would be a murderer. There would be no justification for her actions, no hope of ever being forgiven. That was why, even after uncovering all of Ethan's other lies, she had been too terrified to even bring this up. She had been afraid she wouldn't have the courage to face me. I was there when they discussed the contract, Sarah said weakly. And some of the conditions your father proposed, they seemed designed to make the deal fall through. I scoffed. If their company wasn't a sinking ship, would they have been in a crisis to begin with? My father was a businessman, not a charity. Of course he had conditions. Or should he have just handed over the money and let them run another company into the ground? I looked her up and down with contempt. So based on that and Ethan's unsubstantiated claims, you decided my father goaded a woman into committing murder? With that kind of deductive reasoning, how in the world did you ever become a judge? Sarah knew how flimsy her reasoning sounded, but at the time, she had been consumed with guilt over Ethan. When your heart is biased, you'll find any reason to convince yourself that the person you favor is telling the truth. In retrospect, she had been a fool. With her last excuse stripped away, Sarah panicked. She grabbed my hand, her voice frantic. I'm sorry, Daniel. I was deceived by Ethan, I swear. I never meant to hurt your father. Please, just give me one more chance. Please? I love you, I really do. I was just too blind to see it. You loved me for so many years, and I took you for granted. I'll never do that again. I'll spend the rest of my life loving you with all my heart. I wrenched my hand from her grasp. Your love? Is that supposed to be worth something? I spat. You got my father killed and didn't feel a shred of remorse. You handed over his ashes to be desecrated by his killer. You have the nerve to talk about love? The word love coming from your mouth makes me want to vomit. The memory of what the Donovans did to my father's ashes made Sarah want to fly back home and kill Ethan with her bare hands. She didn't need any more proof to know they had lied to her about that, too. She had just been too stupid, or more accurately, too careless with my feelings to see it at the time. So, even though she found Mrs. Donovan's beliefs to be foolish and superstitious, she had handed over my father's ashes without a second thought. In the end, it wasn't about the sophistication of Ethan's lies. It was about the fact that she had taken my love for granted, allowing her to hurt me without consequence, blindly siding with him no matter what. Everything she had done was coming back to her now, like a boomerang, striking her right in the heart. She couldn't even look at me, her head bowed in shame. I'm sorry, she stammered. I'm so sorry for what I did to your father. But Daniel, please, just give me a chance to make it right. All right, I said with a smile. Sarah's head snapped up, her heart leaping in her throat. She looked at me with desperate hope. She would do anything, she thought, even die, if I would just give her a chance. I tilted my head, my voice deadly serious. Publicly confess your crimes. Deliberate miscarriage of justice, concealing evidence, complicity in my father's death, false imprisonment of me and my brother. You always said you would never let guilty person go free. Well, now it's your turn. The color drained from Sarah's face. Of course, she knew she was guilty. She had knowingly broken the law, which made her crimes even more heinous. But she couldn't let me go. With tears in her eyes, she asked softly, if I turn myself in, if I face the consequences, will you forgive me then? A cold smile touched my lips. No, I said, without a flicker of hesitation. I will never forgive you. With that, I turned to go back inside, but she grabbed my arm. Tears streamed down her face. Daniel, I love you, she whispered. I only hate that it took me so long to realize it. Love has nothing to do with you perverting the course of justice, I said coldly. Let go of my brother. Before I could pull my arm away, another voice cut in. Chris roared from the end of the hall and charged at her. He tackled her to the ground, his fists flying. You monster! You killed our father. You deserve to die. You don't deserve to be a part of this family. Leave my brother alone. Sarah didn't fight back. She let him hit her, kick her. So this is what it felt like, she thought. This kind of pain. She had inflicted so much pain on me. But since she had never felt it herself, she had never truly understood. She knew she deserved this. She would let Chris beat her to death if he wanted. With her last breath, she would sign a document absolving him of the crime. Maybe then, I could find it in my heart to forgive some small part of what she had done. But of course, Chris wasn't going to kill her, and I wasn't about to let my brother throw his life away. I quickly pulled him off her. That's enough, Chris. Stop. You're going to kill her. My shout finally got through to him. He backed away, panting heavily. Sarah's face was a mess of cuts and bruises, her vision blurred from a swollen eye. But even through the haze of pain, my silhouette looked just the same as it had all those years ago, when I had risked my life to save her from her kidnappers. A tear rolled down her cheek. I had told her it was me, and she hadn't believed it. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice hoarse. I'm so sorry. I didn't believe you when you told me. You were the one who saved me. My voice was ice. The biggest mistake I ever made was saving your life. With that, I pulled Chris inside and shut the door. The words hit her like a physical blow. She collapsed on the floor, curling into a ball and sobbing uncontrollably. I'm in it. If I hadn't saved her, if she had died back then, none of this would have happened. My father would still be alive. I wouldn't be this broken, scarred person. Sarah wasn't afraid of dying. She would have rather died in that kidnapping. At least then, she would have died with her integrity intact, true to the ideals that had led her to study law in the first place. And she believed that if she had, I would never have forgotten her. To die when my love for her was at its peak, that would have ensured my love for her would last forever. But now, I found her repulsive. I regretted ever saving her life. Every word was an icicle, formed over a millennium, plunging deep into her heart. The pain was so intense, so cold, she felt like she was dying. So this was what it felt like to be hurt by the one you love. It was an agony beyond words. But she knew that her pain was nothing compared to mine. She owed me a debt she could never repay, one she would never even have a chance to. Sarah made a decision. She would turn herself in. I wanted her to face the consequences of her actions, and she would. It was the only way she could atone. But not just yet. She wanted to see me one more time, to do one last thing for me. After getting Chris settled, I decided to return to the States. I hadn't fled before out of cowardice. I had left because Sarah had too much leverage over me. But now I had nothing left to lose. Sarah, Ethan, his mother, they were all responsible for my father's death. I had been keeping tabs on the news from home. I already knew Mrs. Donovan had been executed. But Ethan and Sarah had not yet paid for their crimes. Even though Sarah had promised to turn herself in, I didn't trust her. I had to see them both face justice for what they had done. But first, I needed to finalize my divorce from Sarah. When I booked my ticket back to Chicago, Rachel booked one too. How did you know I was going back? I asked, surprised. She grinned. I have an inside source. My brother? It didn't take a genius to figure it out. Rachel feigned a look of astonishment. Wow, you're brilliant. I couldn't help but smile. Rachel and Sarah were polar opposites. Sarah was always so serious, so stern. Rachel, despite her academic air, had a wonderful sense of humor. Sometimes I wondered if I had been blind for the last 15 years, to have wasted so much of my life on a woman like that. I guess some people are just masters of disguise. Sarah projected an image of perfect righteousness, but underneath it all, she was more arrogant and selfish than anyone I'd ever met. The first thing I did when I got back to Chicago was finalize my divorce from Sarah. Since I had filed before leaving the country, we didn't have to go through the mandatory waiting period. I knew that as soon as I returned, she would be right behind me. So, I arranged to meet her at the courthouse the next day to sign the final papers. This time, she didn't argue. She just gave a heavy, resigned, okay. The moment the call ended, the tears began to fall. The very thought of divorcing me felt like a physical hollowness in her chest, as if a part of her had been scooped out. But she knew she had no right to object. The next morning, Sarah was waiting for me at the courthouse, right on time. Her haggard expression told me everything I needed to know about how she had spent her night. Let's go, I said, my voice flat. The whole thing felt like a dream to Sarah. Her feet barely seemed to touch the ground. How she wished it were all just a nightmare, that she would wake up and we would still be a happy couple in our cozy home. But there are no do-overs in life. No matter how much it pained her, the clerk processed the papers and handed us our copies of the decree. Sarah clutched the document so tightly her knuckles turned white, a desperate attempt to keep herself from breaking down right then and there. This might be the last time she ever saw me. She wanted to be dignified, to leave me with one last, decent memory of her, even though she knew that in my eyes, she was already the worst person on earth. Still, she hoped I could find it in me to hate her just a little bit less. When we walked out of the courthouse, Rachel was waiting for me a short distance away. Without a backward glance, I walked toward her, leaving Sarah standing alone on the steps. Sarah watched my retreating back until I was just a speck in the distance, and then she finally broke down, sobbing. She had truly lost me forever. Rachel stood waiting, a radiant smile on her face. Seeing me with the divorce papers in my hand made her happier than the day she got her acceptance letter to college. Congratulations, she said, her smile widening. To new beginnings. For the first time in a long time, I felt a genuine, unburdened laugh escape my lips. Thank you, I said. Rachel had picked a romantic restaurant, and we had a quiet, peaceful meal. After we finished, Rachel rested her chin on her hands and looked at me. So, she asked playfully, am I allowed to pursue you now? I laughed and shrugged. After my experience with my ex, let's just say my standards are a lot higher now. Then I'll just have to keep at it until I meet those standards, she said, taking a sip of her wine. As a scientist, patience is my greatest virtue. I grew serious. There's still some things I need to take care of, I said. Sarah's actions were clearly illegal. I had already gathered some evidence against her. But Ethan's actions, as despicable as they were, didn't technically break any laws. He had only used lies to manipulate Sarah. There were no threats, no bribes. In the end, Sarah had acted of her own volition. Legally, Ethan was in the clear. That meant I had no legal recourse to make Ethan pay for his role in my father's death. Did that mean I had to resort to other means? The thought made me deeply uncomfortable. Sometimes, people's actions walk a fine line, technically legal, but morally bankrupt. They do evil things without ever officially breaking the law. But the thought of letting Ethan get away with it was a poison that kept me up at night. On the eve of turning herself in, Sarah heard that Ethan had been released from prison and had vanished. After all, the charges she had used to imprison him were fabricated. The people in her circles were sharp. After she was officially reprimanded for the miscarriage of justice in my father's case, her influence began to wane. With that on her record, any future promotions would be nearly impossible. A thought occurred to Sarah. Since she was going to prison anyway, she might as well do one last thing for me and take care of Ethan. She knew I hated her most of all, but Ethan had to be a close second. Just as Sarah was searching for Ethan, with no luck, Rachel found her. She had terrible news. I was missing. Sarah nearly dropped the phone. Her eyes wide with panic. She snapped, "He's supposed to be with you. How would he be missing? Weren't you supposed to be looking after him?" Rachel didn't rise to the bait. "I'm here to find a solution, not to fight with you," she said calmly. Her words helped Sarah get a grip. After Rachel explained what happened, Sarah knew immediately. It was Ethan. Rachel had never pried into my past, so she had no idea who Ethan was. As Sarah was explaining, her phone buzzed with an iMessage. It was from Ethan, just an address, nothing more. But Sarah knew without a doubt that he had kidnapped me. Besides him, I had no other enemies. The address Ethan had sent was a remote spot by a turbulent river. The area was deserted. Sarah got out of her car and called out, "Ethan, I'm here. Where's Daniel? Ethan stepped out from behind a line of trees, a cold sneer on his face. So worried about Daniel now, are we? Funny, you didn't seem to mind when I was putting him through hell. This devoted act is really pathetic. What do you want to let him go? Sarah asked, refusing to get into an argument. Ethan's face flushed with anger. You should be more worried about whether you're going to get out of here alive, he snarled. I want to see him first, Sarah insisted. Ethan gestured toward the trees behind him. I need to see his face, she said. Fine, Ethan snapped. I'll let you have one last look. He angrily dragged me out from behind the trees. My hands and feet were bound, but other than a few cuts and bruises, I was okay. Sarah breathed a sigh of relief. Ethan grinned triumphantly. There, you've seen him. Sarah nodded. What do you want to let him go? Ethan's face contorted with hatred. He lifted his shirt, revealing a torso covered in scars. Do you see this? This is what you did to me. And today, you're going to pay me back for every single one. He threw a tire iron at her feet. Start by breaking your own leg. As Sarah slowly bent to pick it up, Ethan grabbed me by the throat, his grip tightening. Hurry up, he snarled. You like watching people suffer in the cold, don't you? Make a move, or I'll throw him in the river. Don't, Sarah screamed. She took a deep breath, raised the heavy iron bar, and with a guttural cry, brought it down hard on her own leg. A scream of agony tore from her lips as she collapsed to the ground. Ethan clapped his hands, roaring with laughter. How does that feel? Do you have any idea what they did to me in prison? The pain I went through was 1,000 times worse than this. He limped toward her, and she saw then that his leg had been permanently damaged in prison. That was why he hated her with such a burning passion. The moment he was distracted, Rachel darted out from her hiding place and began to untie my ropes. Ethan saw her and pulled the knife, moving to stop her. But Sarah, with a surge of adrenaline, launched herself from the ground and tackled him. He swung the knife at her, but she caught his wrist, stopping the blow. As they struggled for the knife, they stumbled backward into the guardrail. With a crack of rusted metal, they both tumbled over the edge and into the churning water below. Rachel had just freed my hands. We looked at each other for a split second, then raced to the edge. But the current was too strong. They were already gone. The first thing I did was call the police. After several days of dragging the river, they finally found them. 2 bodies. When I heard the news, I felt a strange sort of numbness. Everyone responsible for my father's death had gotten what they deserved. I didn't feel happy, but I certainly didn't feel any grief for Sarah. It was simply justice. She had reaped what she had sown. Rachel's pursuit of me continued. A year later, on the anniversary of my father's death, I officially agreed to be with her. I believe my father would want me to be happy. And while happiness doesn't have to come from a relationship, it was good to have someone who cared for me and for whom I cared deeply. I was ready to open my heart and embrace love again. Over the past year, I had reopened my jewelry studio. Only this time, it was in London. My brother was there, the woman I loved was there, and my new life was there. Even my father was there, in his final resting place. I placed a bouquet of flowers on his headstone, my eyes welling with tears. Dad, I said softly, can you see? I'm doing okay now. You don't have to worry about me. I'll take care of myself, and I'll never give anyone the power to hurt me like that again. From now on, I will love myself first.